The notification came through at 6:47 in the morning while I was standing at the kitchen counter in my robe, waiting for the coffee to finish. It wasn't a text. It wasn't a call. It was a Google alert, one I'd set up 8 months ago and had almost forgotten about. His name. My husband's name. I'd set it up because he was careless with his calendar, always double booking, always forgetting to tell me about work events I was supposed to attend as his wife. That's why I set it up, to keep track of his schedule. The alert linked to a page 6 item, a gossip column, at 6:47 in the morning. Financier Ethan Wolf spotted at Lenox Hill Hospital late last night. Sources say he's expecting a child with longtime companion Jay Mercer. I read it twice, then a third time. The coffee maker beeped. I didn't move. There was a photo, blurry, taken from across the street, but I knew the way he stood. Weight shifted to his left foot, shoulders slightly forward. The collar of his coat turned up the way he always did when he was nervous. He was holding a coffee cup. He was smiling at someone just out of frame. He told me he was in Boston for a quarterly review. I put my phone face down on the counter. I picked up my coffee. I sat down at the kitchen table, the one we picked out together at a shop in the West Village 2 years ago, because I said the grain of the wood reminded me of my grandmother's house, and he'd said, "Okay, let's get it. Whatever makes you happy." And I had believed him. Here's the thing about finding out the way I did. There was no screaming moment. No dramatic confrontation. Just me in my robe, holding a mug that said "World's Okayest Human." A joke gift from my sister, watching the steam curl up toward the ceiling, thinking very clearly I already knew. Not consciously. But somewhere underneath, I'd known. The late nights. The way he'd started keeping his phone in his jacket pocket instead of leaving it on the counter. The business trips that fell on weekends. How he'd stopped reaching for my hand when we walked. Small things. The kind of things you explain away because you love someone and you don't want to see what you're seeing. I'd loved Ethan Wolf for 6 years. I married him 4 years ago in a small ceremony in Connecticut, in the backyard of his parents' house, and I wore my mother's pearl earrings, and I cried when I said my vows because I meant every single word. And now I was sitting in the kitchen he'd helped pick out. In the apartment, we split 60-40 because his salary was higher and we thought that was fair, reading about his pregnant girlfriend on a gossip website. I didn't cry. I just sat there and made a decision. My sister called me at 8 in the morning. She'd seen the alert too. I'd added her to the same notification years ago as a joke. Some offhand thing about keeping tabs on whether her brother-in-law ever became interesting enough to make the papers. Nora. That was all she said. Just my name. I know, I said. How long? I don't know. A while. I was already at my laptop. I need you to not call me back until I call you first. I need to think. She was quiet. My sister understands when to be quiet. It's one of her best qualities. Whatever you need, she said. I'll call you tonight. I'll be here. I hung up, and I sat with my laptop open, and I started doing something I'd actually been doing, quietly, for the past 3 months. Because here's the other thing I hadn't let myself fully acknowledge. I'd had a feeling. And feelings, when they're that persistent, when they show up at 3 in the morning and sit on the edge of your bed and refuse to leave, those feelings are usually right. 3 months ago, I'd made an appointment with a divorce attorney. Just to understand my options, I told myself. Just to know what I was dealing with. She was a woman named Judith, who had short silver hair and a calm, matter-of-fact way of explaining things that I found deeply comforting. And she had told me, very clearly, without drama, that in New York, what mattered was what I could document. Documentation. I had started documenting, not obsessively, not in a way that felt crazy or vindictive. I just started paying attention to things that were already there. Bank statements. Calendar entries. The credit card charges that didn't quite match what he said he was doing. Small amounts, never large enough to be alarming on their own. A hotel in Midtown on a Tuesday he claimed he was at a dinner in Princeton. A jewelry store receipt in our joint email account for something that never made it home to me. I had a folder on my laptop. I had printed copies in an envelope in the back of my desk drawer underneath a stack of old tax returns. And 3 weeks ago, because I am my mother's daughter, and my mother has always said that timing is the only thing you can actually control, I had bought a ticket to Portland. My college roommate was getting married. It was a real event, a real wedding, a trip I told Ethan about months in advance. Flights booked, hotel confirmed, a beautiful reason to be somewhere else. The wedding was today. My flight was at 11:15. I showered. I packed my bag, which I had mostly packed the night before while Ethan was stuck in a meeting that apparently involved the maternity ward at Lenox Hill. I put on the navy wrap dress I bought for the rehearsal dinner because I had always believed in looking like yourself on the days that matter. I left my wedding ring on the bathroom counter. I didn't slam it down. I just placed it there, next to his toothbrush, next to the face wash he used every morning. Let him find it and understand. Then I called Judith. She answered on the second ring. I told her what I'd found. She asked me 2 questions. Did I have everything I needed, and was I ready? Yes, I said. And yes, send me the folder, all of it. I'll have the paperwork drafted before you land. There's one more thing, I said. There's going to be a statement. Brief pause. What kind of statement? Public. From me. She was quiet for a moment. Then, that's your right. Just don't mention him by name in a way that could be construed as, I know, I said. I thought it through. I hung up. I sat down at the kitchen table one last time. I looked at the apartment. Our apartment. The books on the shelf that were mostly mine. The plants I watered every Sunday. The framed print in the hallway that I'd found at a flea market in Brooklyn and had loved and he had tolerated. And I thought, none of this is going to hurt me. I thought I'd be sadder than this. I thought finding out would break something open. But instead I felt something subtle. The way a room gets quiet after you finally say the thing you've been holding in all evening. I picked up my phone, opened my Instagram, 214,000 followers, built over 5 years of work as an interior designer, real people who actually cared what I had to say, and I posted a story. Just text. White background, black letters. Ethan and I have separated. I want you to hear it from me first. I'm okay. More soon. Then I put my phone in my bag, grabbed my carry-on, and walked out the door. I was in a cab on the FDR when the phone started going. I turned it face down in my lap and watched the East River out the window. The water was that particular gray-green color it gets in the fall, and there were 2 kayakers out despite the cold, which I found oddly encouraging. People just doing their thing. Weather be damned. The cab driver had talk radio on, low enough that I couldn't make out words, just voices. I thought about my college roommate, Haley, who was getting married today to a quiet man who taught high school English and called her every single day on his lunch break just to say hi. I had cried at their engagement party. Ethan had thought it was sweet and also slightly excessive. I was going to dance at that wedding and eat too much salmon and give a toast that made people laugh. And it was going to be real, and I was going to mean every word of it. My phone was going absolutely insane in my lap. I knew without looking that the reason it was going insane was not just the Instagram post. The reason it was going insane was because, about 10 minutes after I posted, I had forwarded the page 6 article and Judith's preliminary documentation summary to a journalist I'd spoken with twice before. A woman who covered wealth and society for a publication that Ethan actually read every morning over his coffee. I'd attached a note that said, "I'll give you the full statement when I land. You have exclusivity until 5 p.m. That was the thing I'd told Judith about. That was what I'd been saving. Ethan called for the first time at 9:22. I watched his name light up on my screen, and I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 9:31. At 9:45, a text. Where are you? We need to talk. At 9:58, Nora, I know you saw the article. Please call me. At 10,007, I'm coming home. That one landed differently. I looked at it for a moment. He was leaving Lenox Hill. He was leaving Jade Mercer and whatever was happening there. I didn't let myself think too hard about what that meant for her, for the baby, and he was coming home. Because of the Instagram post. Because of what he knew was coming. Not because of me. Because of what I'd told the world. I put the phone back face down and told myself, you knew who he was. You saw it. You just didn't want to see it. That was the thing I had to hold on to. Not the hurt. The clarity. Terminal B at JFK was its own particular kind of chaos at 10:30 in the morning. I had TSA pre-check, which Ethan always said was a waste of money and I always said was the best $85 I spent every year. And I moved through security quickly and found my gate and sat down with a bottle of water and my boarding pass and my phone, which I finally turned back over. 47 missed calls, 11 voicemails, Instagram DMs I wasn't going to read yet, 3 texts from my sister that said, in order, oh my God, and call me when you can. I'm with Mom. She says, good for you. 1 voicemail from Ethan that I did listen to because I needed to understand what I was dealing with. His voice was, I never heard it like that before. Cracked down the middle. He said my name 4 times. He said, please 3 times. He said, I can explain once, and then seemed to realize how that sounded because there was a long pause, and then he just said, Nora, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please don't do this. Don't do this. As if I was the one who had done something, I deleted the voicemail. I ordered a coffee from the cafe across from my gate, and I sat back down and I opened my notes app where I had saved a draft of the statement I planned to give the journalist when I landed. I read through it once, made 2 small edits, and sent it. Then I called my sister. How are you actually? She asked. No preamble. That's another thing I love about her. I'm at the airport, I said. I'm fine. I'm genuinely fine. Which is either healthy or concerning. It's healthy, she said immediately. You've been grieving this for months. The rest of us are just catching up. She was right. I had been. I just hadn't called it that. He left a voicemail, I said, and don't do this. My sister made a sound that was not quite a laugh. Wow, right? Where is he now? I looked up at the departure board. My flight was on time. Coming home, he said. He left the hospital. He left. She stopped. She's in labor? I assume so. Or was. I don't actually know. Nora, I know. Are you okay with that, knowing that? I thought about it honestly. The wasn't. You can think about things honestly when you're sitting in an airport with a coffee and your carry-on and a one-way emotional ticket out of a life that stopped being yours some time ago. I feel bad for her, I said. And I meant it. I did feel bad for Jade Mercer, whoever she was in that hospital room, probably finding out right now that the man she'd built something with had run out the door the moment his other life started falling apart. But I don't feel bad for him. Good, my sister said. You shouldn't. A gate agent picked up the microphone across the terminal. I have to go, I said. Tell Mom I'm okay. She already knows. She's been texting you. A pause. She also says you can have the pearl earrings permanently. The ones from her mother. She says they look better on you anyway. I pressed my fingers against my eyes for just a second. Just a second. Tell her I said thank you, I said. They called general boarding at 10:58. At 11:02, my phone rang one more time. Not Ethan's name on the screen this time. My mother-in-law. I stood in line with my boarding pass in my hand, and I looked at her name, and I thought about all the Sunday dinners, all the Christmas mornings, the way she'd cried at our wedding and held my face in her hands, and said, "Welcome to the family, sweetheart," as if she meant it. I thought she had meant it. I let it ring. I stepped forward in the line. The gate agent scanned my boarding pass. The machine beeped its approval. "Have a great flight," she said. "Thank you," I said. "I think I will." I found my seat, 14A, window. I put my bag in the overhead and sat down and buckled my seatbelt and looked out at the tarmac. The ground crew in their orange vests, the carts moving between planes, the ordinary mechanical choreography of departure. I'd always loved this part. The part just before you go. My phone was still going. I turned on airplane mode. The silence was immediate and total, and the most relief I'd felt in months. Here is what I knew. Somewhere in the space between where I'd been and where I was going, Ethan Wolfe was, at that moment, either still in a cab on his way home to an empty apartment, or standing in our kitchen looking at my wedding ring on the bathroom counter, or trying to call me on a phone that was no longer receiving calls. He had left a woman in a hospital. He had lost what he thought was the thing he could always come back to. And I was 35,000 feet above the ground, or about to be, wearing my navy-wrap dress, going to my college roommate's wedding, where I was going to dance and give a toast and mean every word. The plane pushed back from the gate. I watched the terminal shrink away through the window. All those people moving through it like water. Everyone going somewhere. Everyone carrying something. I thought about my grandmother's kitchen table, about the coffee I'd left on the counter this morning, about the way grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just a mug of coffee going cold while you sit very still and make a decision. The engines grew louder. The runway blurred past. And then we were up, and the city was below me. Grid and water and bridge and burrow. All of it exactly as it was, continuing without me. And I thought, I'm going to be okay. Not in the way you say it to reassure someone. In the way you know a thing because your whole body knows it, because you've already survived the worst of it while everyone else was still asleep. The seatbelt sign dinged off. I ordered a ginger ale from the flight attendant and watched the clouds close over the city below. And I thought about Haley and her quiet husband who called her every day just to say hi. And I thought about what it might be like to be loved like that, reliably on a Tuesday for no reason. And I thought, yes, that is what I'm going to want next. Not yet, but eventually. The clouds went white and full below us, and somewhere behind me a child laughed at something, high and clean and uncomplicated, and I leaned my head against the cool of the window and let myself, for the first time in a very long time, think about nothing at all. I've thought a lot about the moment I put my wedding ring on the bathroom counter. Not slammed it, not left a note, just set it there quietly next to his toothbrush and walked out. People who heard the story later kept waiting for the part where I broke down, where I screamed or begged or fell apart in some way that made the whole thing feel proportionate to the size of the betrayal. But that's not how it went. And I think the reason it didn't go that way is that I had already done the hard work before anyone else knew there was hard work to do. That's the thing about integrity. Not the word on a motivational poster, but the real version, the quiet, daily version. It doesn't announce itself. I didn't make a scene at the hospital. I didn't call his mother or his colleagues or the journalist until I was ready, until I had everything documented, until I was certain I was acting from clarity and not from pain. The choices I made in those final hours weren't impulsive. They were the result of months of paying attention, of being honest with myself about what I was seeing even when I didn't want to see it. Ethan made different choices. He chose to believe he could maintain two lives indefinitely, that the person who loved him most would simply wait, absorb the neglect, and never reach her limit. And I think that's what undid him. Not my Instagram post, not the journalist, not the lawyer. What undid him was his own consistent decision to underestimate me. Every time he assumed I wouldn't notice, wouldn't ask, wouldn't act, he was wrong. The consequences that came weren't a punishment I designed. They were just the natural end of a long chain of his own decisions, finally catching up. I'm not saying I was perfect through any of this. I had months of 3 a.m. doubt, months of wondering if I was reading things wrong, if I was being paranoid, if the life I thought I had was still salvageable. What got me through those months wasn't certainty. It was something smaller and more stubborn. The refusal to stop thinking clearly even when it hurt. I made appointments. I read documents. I saved receipts. I asked hard questions of myself before I asked them of anyone else. That discipline, that willingness to keep using my head even when my heart wanted to just go numb, that mattered more than anything. And then there was the part that came after. Getting on the plane, going to Haley's wedding, dancing, giving that toast. A lot of people asked me later how I did that, how I showed up like that on a day like that. The honest answer is that it wasn't performance. It was the only thing that made sense. I had made a decision about what my life was going to be. The grief was real, and it was there, and it wasn't going anywhere, but I wasn't going to let it be the whole thing. That's what I tell anyone in a version of that kitchen, holding a mug, reading something on their phone that they already somehow knew. The clarity you find on the other side of a hard truth is not the absence of pain. It's just proof that you were strong enough to face it. And that strength, the kind that shows up quietly, that documents instead of screams, that boards the plane, that's yours. Nobody gave it to you. Nobody can take it away. I landed in Portland at 2:15 in the afternoon. The sun was actually out.